WACA SouthCoast. And because as he runs his show here in New Bedford, the mayor is here and he has to dash. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mayor Scott Lang, City of New Bedford, and he's going to share a few words with us this morning about how he, in particular, is staying healthy in the city of New Bedford. Thank you, Scott.
By the minute, I can tell you, just watching all of you eat right and being out there exercising, young people have the key on this is simply this: three good meals for our kids, decent food in our schools, alcohol, tobacco, drug prevention at all costs, getting our kids out, walking to start, playing, being involved day to day in activities that will enhance their spirit and give them toned type of physical presence, no matter what shape or what size they are. So everything's interrelated. This is so important, and this is what I learned each day as mayor. Our healthy bodies are absolutely paramount to everything.
Thank you, Dr. Mullen. So I mentioned that we took this trip to Alexandria, Virginia last July, and that's where we met this fine gentleman who hails from Scituate, Massachusetts, but we had to meet him in Alexandria, Virginia. Mark,
can we design a healthy community? And some of you have heard me talk about this. My apologies if some of you have heard the opening salvo here will be familiar if you've heard me. How many of you, if you will do nothing else, and I've asked some of you this before and you've already raised your hands here, so I know you're with me on this, will join me in my campaign to change the conversation and make sure we don't just talk about an obesity epidemic, but we help everybody recognize that at the root, we've got to solve epidemics of physical inactivity and poor nutrition. Hands up if you're with me. How about having to have an adult present to do the activity? How many of you actually had a coach, like a formal coach that was assigned? How about a referee? Did you recall referees being very important to your recollection? A few of you. Uniforms, how many of you actually spoke about uniforms in your recollection? Did you mention uniforms? Anybody here mention uniforms being important to the fondness of your recollection? Costumes. I can only imagine. Okay. How many of you did your recollection involve just whatever kids were available? Different ages, different genders, whatever you could get your hands on, that's who's out there. Okay, and how many of you did not necessarily have an adult present when you were being physically active? How many of you could not have gotten away with what you were doing if an adult was present? I noticed that the representative put his hand up for that, and then he put it back down. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Cable TV.
Yeah, that's right. How many of you had a bicycle as part of your recollection? How many of you recall the bicycle in some capacity? How about water? So either skating on it, or fishing in it, swimming in it, damming up a neighborhood creek. There are a lot of different ways. Paddling a canoe, but was there water involved? I see that as a theme. A lot of people have recollections about playing around or in water, on water. Snow forts even, in this region of the country. How many of you, if I were to vastly oversimplify, would say your recollection had some elements, if you really thought honestly about it, of having what if I may call it this, a free-range kid? Think about that term. Were you kind of a free-range kid, or did you have to... Being able to show up when the streetlights turn back on is certainly a classic. Certainly, my mom kicked us out on a Saturday morning, did not want to see me until the streetlights came. Her perfect day was my friends and I disappear on our bikes with a sandwich and a knapsack, and we were going to come back that night. We actually did an exercise yesterday. We spent some time at Keith Middle School with some wonderful students there that are already embarking on a Safe Routes to School program. This is a national program, by the way. I think I'll have the website on the next slide. That it's built on a lot of the 5 E's, education and enforcement and encouragement. You realize that those three are all the first P, the programmatic stuff. Then the engineering, which is really the project-based stuff. And what we hope is the school actually moves to the level of policy change. They have, by the way, a horrendous traffic jam out in front of that school every day, pick-up and drop-off time. 1,000 kids are dumping out of the middle school and nearly 4,000 in the high school across the street. So these were some of the recommendations. I put them into the P sort of guideline. They came out of our discussion. One of the first things they want to do is evaluate where are kids coming from and by what travel. Why are they there? All these kids in theory live within walk and bike distance. So let me say this clearly. They have no school buses other than for special needs or going to other programs. No school buses as a matter of routine transportation there. So in theory it's a walking school. Yet there are scores, maybe hundreds of cars out there at pick-up and drop-off time. So why? So let's ask the parents. They wanted to do some surveys. A couple of the kids Just when we did it yesterday, went out and walked up to a couple of car windows and said, why do you guys come by car now? Would you walk? If it were, what would have to change for you to do that? And they said, yeah, I would have walked with my kids and made it safer. 2 out of the 3 cars they talked to. Now, this is no big deal. But it gives you a glimpse into how we could open the whole. Might be to say, no cars in front of the school. If you're really going to pick up or drop off, park at a church or something that's a quarter mile away. So even the kids who do come by car get some physical activity. Lest you think that that's an absurd idea, we did a workshop in planning and implementation in a school in Columbia, Missouri, an urban school, not unlike this one. They decided exactly that. You can put in median islands for pedestrian crossings and things like that. Very cool stuff. I thought this would wow the engineers. And they mostly just nodded their heads and said, yeah, we want to do all that stuff. Like this wasn't even a fight. The anti-transportation engineering discipline understands, they've tested, they've got research on this, they know this not only is better for bicycles and pedestrians, but may well reduce collisions in automobiles and maintain comparable traffic flows. Even though it's counterintuitive, I'm taking the lane away, but you're moving the turning vehicles, it works better. Okay, that's all cool. I don't even get an argument. By the way, on our trip yesterday, I couldn't help but think about Route 6 session. We were driving, excuse sort of the shot through the windshield of the bus. But imagine just with what paint, what one could do to that road as you begin to strike lights on either side, you create a center turn line. And Ray and I were talking, and he said, you know, you don't have to do this the whole way. Even if you did this in portions where there aren't a lot of turning movements and the flow would work well, if you put little islands, that wasn't just striping, but imagine if that were a little vegetated island. All of a sudden, this could feel like an actually appealing parkway rather than kind of the heinous road that it is right now. Well, people had not decided it was important. The single most important thing you can do is reach out to your elected and appointed officials and get them to see this as part of their agenda and a winning agenda for the community. They may want to hear about economic development. They may want to hear about environmental sustainability. Doesn't matter. Whatever their angle is, I believe we have a compelling case for this style of design, and we should be making it. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Thank you kindly for your amazing patience with me this morning. It's a pleasure. Very excited you're here. Go to these breakout sessions ready to work, because the question is going to be, how are you going to make it happen? Thank you guys very much.
This workshop stays here. That's easy. And that's a healthy
farmers markets. We're also talking fresh local fruits and vegetables in schools. We're also talking fresh fruits and vegetables at after-school programs. We're bringing these messages and encompassing each micro-community as a community and treating that the same way you're trying to treat the whole community and making these large. And that's kind of the idea that I wanted to bring and talk about. How can we get our micro-communities to think as a community and bring the same concepts, talk the same concepts throughout. So a community might have a program such as mine that brings nutrition education into the elementary school class.
We want to make sure that this whole initiative makes sense. The people in Wareham can ride from Wareham or walk if they really want to from Wareham.
You know, I was really interested in what Mark had to say, because Mass in Motion is all about scale and effectiveness, making changes that are going to affect an entire community. And 10 communities received Mass in Motion grants. Fall River received 1 of 2 implementation grants. So in the 2 years of the grant, we're expected to see some changes either in policy, in systems, or in the environment. And I think with bike trails, we're talking, policy, but also certainly environment.
What organizations can we bring in to partner with? Who are the key entities that need to be a part of this? What's the larger vision to help connect this all?
I don't know if this is part of the larger vision, but on my piece, I thought I need to talk to both of you and find out.
So the first workshop was the Safe Routes to School.